Namaskar. Hello and welcome to P Guru's channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. Joining me today is a new guest, Raghava Krishna, and I am 100% confident that you're going to come and watch these episodes as we continue it on a periodic basis to understand more and more about what we are going to talk about today. And let's first welcome our guest, Raghava Krishna. Namaskaram and welcome to P Guru's channel.
Namaskaram, Sriji. Thank you so much for having me here.
I keep thinking, how is it that somehow I get to meet people, but everybody traces it back to Mahaperiva? And I'm seeing on your back, there is a picture of Sri Chandrasekhara Saraswati. And this is how I actually met Dr. Swami. I also met Professor RV, MRV, MR Venkatesh, you know him, he's a television personality. Every one of us, Gurumurthy, we all go back to the same spot. So, and many more. As and when I meet somebody new whom I can draw intellectual energy from, they all seem to go back to this great man. And I can't tell you more. I mean, this is great. I'm sorry to lapse into this before jumping into this, because there is something at work from up there, okay? Because some of the books I wrote also, the clue doesn't come, it's not like I'm working at a clue. The clue just comes and jumps out at me. And then I start writing about it. So today we are going to listen to Raghavji explain his new initiative. It's called Brhat. And what exactly is Brhat? And why is this an essential thing for the world? I'm not talking about India. I'm not about Hindus. I'm talking about this is essential for the world. We need to look at the world in a different perspective. And this is a much needed thing as we get more and more embroiled into personalities, polarization of every kind. All these things, there was a way in which all these things were in good balance. And that's what Raghavaji is going to talk about. Enough of my preamble. Now I yield the floor to you. Raghavaji, tell me when to start the slide deck and I'll start it right away. Over to you.
Thank you so much. I think we can begin, and I would talk through this. But before we get into Brhat, I think the point that you made has been my experience as well, Sriji. I think for any Hindu, it's very intuitive and it's also empirical that all of our initiatives start with the spiritual core. We might intellectualize it later. There might be analytical frameworks. There might be movements. There might be cultural artifacts that we produce. But all of that goes back to the Chetana given to us by the great rishis. So it's not actually coincidence at all. And I don't think it should surprise anybody who understands the design of Hindu civilization. So I'm very, very glad to have that connection. And thank you for having me. I think the framing that you've given, it's not, Brhat is not entirely new. And we are in the epoch of Sri Rama Chetana. So Jai Sri Ram, firstly, to all of us. We're coming to 2 years now, a couple of months shy of two years. It does feel new to us. The entire team that started Brhat way back in 2022 is still there. We are 16 full-time team members at Brhat, and I'll talk about it a little bit. But I think tracing back to the why, which is where I think our attention should be. There are a few central issues that bind the global civilization today. And I think you mentioned that this is not just the Hindu cause, this is not just the Indian cause. This is a global cause simply because the global futures are bound together. And when we talk about Dharma, Dharma is universal. So this has been my realization both intellectually and morally over the course of last 20, 22 years of my working life and the last 5, 6 years being active in the movement. Now, what are these questions? If you were to frame some big questions that we are trying to tackle with today, first is, of course, the question of how do we look at growth decoupled from resource extraction? The contest between economy and ecology, I think, has reached a precipice, and we don't seem to have too many answers. When I look at what's happening with SDG, what happens with ESG, what happens in its latest form as DEI, all of these are coming from paradigms and faith systems which do not have the integral principle. So there is no way that we are going to tackle this question of economic growth combined with ecology unless you have a fundamentally different metaphysics of self informing that. Secondly, you have question of 10 billion people interconnected, but loneliness is increasing. Why is that? I was just reading Jonathan Haidt's new book, The Anxious Generation. He talks about it in the US context, but I think it's easy for all of us in India to relate to this as well. That there is an increase in meaninglessness. The generation that is growing up now feels rootless, feels that the self-validation is outsourced to digital technologies. There is an increased case of suicides, even in India. It's very, very disheartening to see the suicide rates in premium institutions. So there is a very, very big problem there. Of course, Hyde tracks it down to the rise of social media and what that means as a culture. So that's the second one. The third question, which we are all familiar with in the Indian context, is, of course, the question of tradition versus modernity, which is actually a travesty because the idea of Sanatana is Nityanutana. It's ever new. This was not a binary that Hindu mind struggled with ever, because Hindu mind does not look at this as ancient versus new, and neither do we have the notion that ancient necessarily means archaic. Ancient is not archaic. Ancient is not old, and not incompatible with the new. So this is a problem that is breaking into Hindu families. There is a generational gap. And the fourth one, if I may add, is the question of global commons, whether it is ecology, whether it is immigration, whether it is policies of capital and labor movement. How do you look at the structure of nation state itself when we are talking about global commons in a digital society? This is something that thinkers have started really worrying about, whether the structure, because all through history we've had this question. This is not a new question. Human societies all over the world have created political technologies, social technologies, material technologies, whether it is the wheel, map, computer, or it is social structure, or it is democratic politics. We've created these institutions with the idea of a certain kind of structure and rules-based order. I think that is bursting at its seams, both for answering global challenges and also for ways of thinking about human collectives together. So these four issues, ranging from ecology to meaninglessness to how we look at tradition and modernity within the Hindu fold particularly, and the idea of nation state in a world which is bound together digitally. These are some of the questions which animated me even as I was in the creative industry. My background is in the game industry. I worked in mobile games for a long time, for about 17 years. And after that, I've been in education, in learning design. And during this journey, I've come in contact with what we call our traditional knowledge systems, the Indian knowledge systems. So my work, and by extension, what we do at Brhat with all of us, Pankaj is the co-founder, and there's a 16-member team, is that we are convinced morally and intellectually that dharmic futures is the way. We have to look at everything in the world through the Dharma drishti. So if you will, our fundamental work, there are many, many components, and I'll talk about it, but our fundamental work is to build the pedagogy of Dharma drishti. Whether it is international relations, whether it is economy, whether it is meaning, whether it is culture, whether it is politics, how do we bring Dharma as the primary lens to look at all of these, and what perspectives can we produce for the world? This is our work. And this obviously folds into many products, many brands, and many initiatives. I'll talk about it. But fundamentally, the same questions that animate all of us. The issue that how do we transfer our values to our children? It's a challenge that all Hindu parents face today. You spoke recently about the Riddhi Patel incident, and you really espoused it brilliantly that it's easy to look at the symptom, but we need to go deeper into the causes. What is this phenomenon? And that phenomenon is familiar to all Hindu parents today. We are struggling, quite honestly, whether it's in US or in India, to actually relay the moral significance of our civilization to our own children. And there are structural and intellectual reasons why that is happening. Our work is to address that.
Thank you so much, Raghava. And let's start with this picture here. I think it is Shiva because I see the trident, and usually we identify our gods with their weapons or what they have in their hands, and that's usually the way. I think it is Shiva. I could be wrong though. Please talk us through a little bit about this beautiful, beautiful image here.
So I should credit Amrutanshu Pandey, who heads the strategy and operations at Brhat. He is a creative who dabbles with generative AI quite extensively. Even if I'm saying this, I'm not aware of anybody else who's put so much of prana into the generative AI and making it work for dharmic creatives. I won't actually try to imagine what he was coming up with too much, but this fusion of Shiva and Rama, and you have many stories around it, where Rama and Shiva inspire each other. The idea that we had as we looked at Ram Chaitana, right from Jan 22nd to what happened yesterday, is that the gods are rising. Are we in tune or not? So this movement was for us we keep talking about a civilizational movement at Brhat, and we have a certain anatomy of civilizational movement. We say that there is a yearning that rises in people, and that yearning meets certain heroic characters. Right? Of course, the greatest of that is Sri Rama, and all of us are enveloped in Sri Rama consciousness today. I don't think we've fully figured what it means for not just India, but for the world future. But we know that something profound is happening, and we are all grateful that we are alive at this moment. But this is fundamentally about our gods rising and asking us to, the video that you played, Uttishta Jagrita, to arise and awake, to make sure that the Vakyas of rishis are not like how we speak, right? Any Rishi Vakya is a milestone in the journey of humanity. So when Swami Vivekananda says he sees the ancient mother rising up to take her throne, it is not something that we analyze. It is just something that we follow and execute. That's what this picture did, for like the rest of the work that we do at Brhat. We're trying to see how we can abide by the Vakyas of our rishis.
Wonderful. And let's just go through this thing. Talk to us a little bit about your vision. You've looking at 15 years down the road, Indic knowledge systems. I'm not visible on the screen, but that's okay. I want the focus to be on Brhat and you. So talk to us a little bit about your vision. You've been in, are you guys self-funded? Have you raised money? How are you doing it? I just want to get the validation part, business part out of it quickly, then we can jump into our vision. Go ahead.
No, thank you so much for that. It's also important for us to be able to communicate this. So this is a vision statement that we've distilled, after having dabbled with different elements of our work, from content to, content both visual and written content, to curriculum, to partnerships that we have on the cultural front. We asked ourselves, what does it really boil down to? And that problem statement of, for the first time in our history, perhaps, Hindu parents are struggling to communicate what they stand for. And we are, I think, at a moment where the elders are unsure about what they are leaving behind, and the younger ones are not really sure where they belong. So when we looked at this problem, clearly all those elements of meaning making that I mentioned, because we are now in a global civilization, and therefore your meaning making apparatus also has to be factoring that. So what does it mean? It means that we have a civilization because there is a certain knowledge system that generates both knowledge and the transmission of that knowledge. If we were to look back at it and abstract it to institutions, we're talking about three fundamental institutions that govern the Hindu civilization. First is family. Family for us is where, the entire value system along with the ritual practice to actually live for that is transmitted. Next is the guru or Sampradaya, which is the transmission mechanism. And I don't think we've enabled our young children to wonder about this enough. We haven't asked them to wonder about what it takes for a civilization to continuously utter the same mantra 7,000 years. How is it retained? Because when we try and do a sankalpa, it hardly lasts a week. So what is it about this civilization that is giving this continuity? So if we are able to think about this, then we understand it from a knowledge system perspective and what Guru and Sampradayas mean. The transmission mechanism, we talk about internet, digital transfers, generative AI today, and we still struggle with fidelity when we transmit. What is it about the Indian knowledge system that perfected the human instrument itself to have flawless fidelity of transmission? And the third one, of course, is the temples, where all of our civilizational constructs are brought together. All of the Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, everything is there in the temple. So a lot of our work is around these three institutions, but we want to articulate it not as a political project, not even as some cultural meme, but as a fundamental civilizational knowledge system that is serving her children. And this is about learning. And our effort is, like I said, to create a pedagogy of Dharma Drishti, which is how do we talk about Dharma? How do we teach Dharma? How do our kids learn Dharma? And that needs certain intelligences to flourish. All of the world's problems, all the global statements that we made, can be abstracted to problems of collaboration and learning. If you know how to learn and if you know how to collaborate, a lot of these things can be solved. But to do that, there is certain fundamental human potential that needs to be harnessed. And that is an aesthetic intelligence, that is a psychological intelligence, that is the emotional intelligence, that is the cognitive intelligence, that is the social and interpersonal intelligence. So when we look back at our own civilization, you look at Yoga Sutras, which is the deepest text on psychological understanding. You look at Itihasa Purana, the greatest text ever for complexity of dharma and interpersonal and social learning. You look at Tarka Shastra, the greatest knowledge about cognitive intelligence and argumentation. Similarly, Ashtadhyayi, the whole idea of linguistics and Sanskrit. So the nub of all these problems, if we were to look at what is like in the Indian tradition, we ask, what is it that by knowing which you know everything else? We are inspired by the Upanishad thinking. And we say, how do we produce people who can solve these problems? Which means that we need to have people with these intelligences. They need to study Natya Shastra to understand beauty. They need to study Yoga Sutra to understand themselves. They need to understand the society, the Bharata Varsha, through Itihasa Purana. So our vision is in the next 15 years, regardless of whether our formal education system is able to do it or not, preferably through the formal education system. But despite it, if it doesn't work for us, no child in India and any Hindu child across the world or any child across the world should finish education without being acquainted to the core seminal knowledge traditions of Bharat. I really believe that it is our moral obligation, because if you don't create these intelligences in the next generation, we are leaving them with too much complexity to deal with. We've created this complexity. My generation has, through its choices, created this complexity. So I keep saying this, whatever we do is in some ways also a penance to try and give some means for sense making.
Wonderfully put. There so many thoughts went through my mind when you were mentioning this, because I can, relate to so many day-to-day occurrences where if we really knew what we had learned, our forefathers had left for us, we wouldn't be in this situation. Yes. I'll give you a simple example. You said to go to temples, right? You take a typical trip to temple. Today, the thing is, first thing is, where do I put my chappals? Then, let me go and get the basket that has the fruits and things. Then, did I get the correct coconut? Is this going to be a good coconut? I mean, we have, I don't know, it's becoming a big chore. Where is the point? Where is the time to look at all the scriptures? Where is the time to look at the sculptures? Each temple has a message. It has a certain structure. Where is the time to look at all that? Unless you force yourself to spend time for an hour or two, you wouldn't know the beauty of some of these magnificent temples that are in India. Yeah. And so that right there, we are on the clock all the time. Somehow we need to free ourselves from the clock. I mean, I was listening to you and said, this is the first challenge I have myself. I have to free myself from the clock. Otherwise, you'll never be able to break this. Go ahead. You're going to say something.
No, you're welcome to join our Anveshi program, Sriji. We do a temple program. It's called Brhat Anveshi. We've done about 6 editions so far. Twice in Hoysala. We've taken people to temples in Goa, to Chambal, to Gwalior and other places, to Himachal Pradesh. Now there's 3 more coming up. I can tell you there is no bigger transformative experience than actually, and Pankaj, of course, my co-founder, he's been doing research on temples for over 2 decades. So we bring the ecological, the spiritual, the mystical, religious, art, architecture, social, economic, all of these dimensions that actually locate itself, themselves in a temple. We bring them into the foregrounded consciousness. So next time you're in India, or if you can match your timings with when we have a program, we'd love to have you on board.
Definitely. All right. So let's get back to your.
I think also just a question about how we are structured. Of course, I explained the vision. Yeah. We have 2 organizations, Sriji. One is Brhat Culture Creative LLP, which is an LLP, and we do all of our products and commercial activities from there. And we have Brhat Educational Trust, which is where all of our Indian knowledge system based research and pedagogy building that happens there. We are a 16-member full-time team. I do not believe that civilizational work can be done part-time. It cannot be done as a second priority. So my intention, even when I started without any, I bootstrapped it myself. And right from day one, it was a full-fledged team. And I also believe that, we've given our young people a very cruel choice. We're telling them that they can either have a good life or they can work for Dharma. This binary has to be broken. We need to create really good, meaningful career opportunities working for Dharma. That Artha and Dharma dimension need to come together. And that's where we think. So we are able to generate, we are into our second year, about 45% of our expenses we are able to generate through our programs. This is through our courses, our temple offerings, our research projects. So these are the three areas that we work on. Culture Creatives is the content that we produce ourselves. We also do education research and governance model-based research. And of course, through all of this, we are hoping to develop a certain kind of leadership for civilization. These are the three broad areas. If you go to the next slide, you will see three actions that we do. We create content. We create mostly all of the content that we do is for ourselves and by ourselves. And we curate. For example, just 2 weeks ago, we partnered with Ananda Shankar Jayanji to do Ramayana Kalparuksham at Hyderabad. And we also do certain partnerships with others. And we consult on anybody who's looking at either for a product or for a idea, an Indian knowledge system centric approach. And we dabble with creatives to try and articulate those things. So these are three. But I am, of course, looking for support. Like I said, 45% of our revenues are generated through programs. I hope to reach a stage where we are at least breaking even within a year. And of course, then build a corpus so that I can create more opportunities. So that's where we are.
It's it's a small world. Ananda Shankar is my sister-in-law. I'm married to her younger sister, Sugandha. Oh. So it's a small world.
Okay.
So let's get back to
very closely with her.
So so let's get back to this. So this is your culture engine: create, curate, and consult. It's beautifully constructed. Would you like me to go to the next slide, or are we going to be?
Yeah, so we can go ahead and I'll quickly give an overview of what we've done. So these are all of our brands and products. Very quickly, Brhat Mridang is a series of short videos where we try and bring our festivals, our rituals, our knowledge systems, our sense of time into bite-sized small captions in 2.5 minutes. We've done a series on Ritus. We've done a series on our festivals. We've done it on our Panchang. We've done it on the social customs in India around festivals. So this is a small series to a small visual series to try and help people connect with why behind the what and the how. Next is Brhat Anveshi, which I mentioned is the temple assemblage program. A lot of our alums or people who know Brhat know us through this. This has been truly transformative. I've seen parents taking their kids to temples, and by the time they come back from the experience, they actually tell this to us that they see a difference in their child's behavior. Because we have to understand also that we are in a culture today where we are moving away from the experiential to the explanatory traditions. That is why we are having to explain so much to our next generation, because the investment is in the analytical cognitive dimension. We need to reclaim the experiential part. When you go to a temple and when you actually experience it, you don't need an explanation for what you felt. It's already there inside you. The child can feel it. If the child does not go to the temple, then you will have to explain why 3 pradakshanams, why right to left, why all of this. Right? So this is transformative just by immersion. Then we have Drashta. This is our online course series. We offer short and medium-term online courses directly to public. We've done about 12 courses now. We have an alumni base of over 1,000 people through these courses. Some of the most popular ones are what Pankaj takes on Ram Swarup ji, Sitaram Goyal ji, what Amrit does on world civilizations and Indian civilizational history. Our next one is going to be on Dharampal ji, Dr. Anurag Shukla, who is part of my team, who heads the Indian knowledge system research. He is a researcher into Dharampal tradition of education. We're doing a course on that. So that's our online course. Fractal Mandala is a very interesting creative universe that I would encourage everyone to explore. This is where Amrit, who heads the strategy and operations and who does a lot of creative work for us, this is his universe, the whole Hindu universe from Puranic lore to Rigvedic lore, all of that, both visual and also written. He's written over 2 lakh words on this. All of it is available here. Similarly, we have Scrolls of Aryavarta, which is storytelling through generative AI, where we talk about our Puranic history in modern contemporary art forms. Then we have Swarnanjali, which is actually our attempt to take back our language, literature, and aesthetics and reclaim it in regional languages. We've done about 20 episodes of the greatest books in Hindi literature tradition. The second series is currently on. And one of our flagship programs is Niti Vidhana. This is where we have an MOU with Ministry of Education, where we do public policy education based on civilizational knowledge systems for public and also for people in service. We've also delivered a course for Mission Karmayogi, which is on the iGot platform, which is on design thinking for service excellence in public activities, in public administration, but rooted in Indic principles. So clearly, as you can see, DT is our blog. We publish quite fervently, about 180 blogs in the last 2 years. We write most of these, and very selectively, we also edit and publish if somebody submits. And we have one series on civilizational thought systems, which is Bodha, where we talk about political history, the cultural history, and some of the challenges that we face as Hindu civilization. So these are all of our brands, but like I said, through all of this, the unifying thread is the Dharma Drishti pedagogy. Whether it is an article or a course or a temple experience, what we want to leave people with is the idea of making sense through the lens of Dharma. The drishti of looking at things from Dharma, which is to me complexity thinking, which is to me the idea of sustainability, which is the harmonious way of existence. How do you look at this from the Dharma point of view, and how do we reason it out later? So that's the effort.
Wonderful talking to you, Raghava Krishna, and I wish you all the best in your initiative. It's out of the world. It's very unique. Viewers, you would have also listened to my interview with Siddharth, son of Vijaya Vishwanathanji, who co-authored Snakes in the Ganga, and how he actually has evolved in a slightly alternate education system. So is his brother. He's right now, his brother is doing his master's in Stanford now. So we've had this conversation also. So somehow it looks like He-Gurus is one place where all these new methods, new initiatives are all finding their voice. I'm very happy, and I'm very pleased that our mutual friend got us together to do this thing. Viewers, this is just the first one, and we are going to be doing it frequently. And if you don't understand some of the stuff that Raghava has said, please feel free to go back and listen to this. And I actually had the chance of listening to him analyze one movie called Rudraveena, and that was in Telugu, but the amount of information that he puts into it, you have to go back and listen to it a few times to get the full import. Raghava is a rare find, and I'm not doing Mukhastuti. Raghava, I'm not doing Mukhastuti. I've seen a lot of brilliant people. The other takeaway from this is, please, parents, don't insist on only cognitive intelligence. Cognitive intelligence will get you good grades, but there are so many other forms of intelligence also that child has to develop. Otherwise, they can't fit into the society. Yeah. So please understand this, because this is one of those things that I see some extremely accomplished, gifted children, Indian American children and Indian children, but they are not able to fit into the society because others are not able to think at their level or as fast as they are. Somehow, somewhere things are going wrong. These are all things that we need to look at when we are shaping our children's futures. Thanks once again, Raghava. We'll be back again. This is a topic very close to my heart. Thank you once again. Namaskar.
Thank you so much. For anybody who wants to reach out to us, they can contact at bereft.in or visit our website www.bereft.in. There is a membership area for those who are looking to support us. We would be grateful. Thank you so much, Sriji, once again for giving me this chance.
Thank you. Namaskar.